So I also want to show you a couple places where you can stick one of these myofascial balls, a tennis ball, a rubber band ball, kind of in lower extremity. These are kind of the common places where I see people having dysfunction. These balls and setups are really quick, easy ways to get some quick, kind of pointed, focused work on some tight areas. We spend a lot of time externally rotated in CrossFit. We're swinging, we clean, we squat. All of this time spent in this slightly externally rotated position tends to make, turn around for me a little bit, tends to make the short hip rotators a little bit tight. And so one of the most obvious ways to get in there, besides all the other good stretching and pigeon pose-like things, all the hip openers, is to go ahead and target on the ground and stick this ball in any of the hip rotators that feel tight. So it can be done with two balls together, if that's what you've got, a tennis ball, a cross ball. These rings are about $2.50. I hand them out to everyone. You can get a signed autographed version if you need, but that's not necessary.
Those are the $250.
That's $250 one, that's right. So go ahead and lay this on the ground and see if you can find anything in that kind of hip butt that feels tight. Anything. It's all it is, right? And that's usually the common experience, is that, holy crap, everything is tight. You're an expert. There's no wrong way to do it. What we want to do is get some movement, get some mobilization in those tissues. Again, same rocking thing. So you can do a couple things. You could try to activate the hip through. Try pull your knee to your chest a little bit. Does that change anything? Try pulling the knee to the ground. Just do a little oscillation in and out. You know, really there's no wrong way to do it. We're exploring, one is that I can either just do small movements over the ball itself. Two is I can move the joint past the ball in some way. So, you know, find that kind of your magic business. Make sense? Absolutely. So let's say that you're at the job all day and you don't know what to do. You're starting to get tight at your workforce. Go ahead and have a seat here. There's our chair. Here's your desk. A simple thing to do to kind of amass some time, if you stand up for me, right where that hamstring inserts into that kind of ischial tube, which is kind of the sits bone, what I want you to do is imagine putting this ball right at the insertion of the hamstring into your butt. So see if you can find that spot for me. Go ahead and sit down on it. Right at the base of that hamstring, where it comes into the butt there. Find anything tight there? Yeah, and it usually is a big ropey tendinous junction. So straighten your leg, makes it a little bit more interesting. You can put that leg out in front of you and roll around on it. You know, my guys who have tight hamstrings, this is a way to kind of, you know, get some time in, get some mobilization without having to leave the desk, right? You're flying a lot in the airplane, you're driving a lot in the car. Go ahead and bring the ball with you and just sit on, you know, the passengers next to you are thinking you're a little weird, but you're already a little bit weird. So one concept is just to spend some time kind of at that tendinous insertion, that kind of that interface of hamstring and glute right there. And then the other option is go ahead and stand up for me. Using that same kind of tack and stretch concept, we're going to stick the ball into the belly of the hamstring itself. Go ahead and sit down on it, right? And then I want you to roll around and identify a spot that feels ugly. Pelvis tall, neutral. Find something tight. Okay, so there's ugly. Now go ahead and straighten your leg out, and basically you're pulling that hamstring past that localized tacked piece that's on the ball. So we'd say, you know, again, mobilize that thing 15, 20 times until you feel tissue start to change. One of the kind of theories that that why this works is that your layers of connective tissue muscle should be like sheets of silk that slide past one another, and they tend to become amassed lumps of clay that are really sticky. And what we want to do is kind of reintroduce the silk concept. So we have layers of connective tissue, layers of fascia, layer of muscle sliding past one another. It's an easy way to amass that. And if you've ever torn a hamstring, ever had a tight hamstring section, probably these areas are going to become a little bit more manifest. Make sense?
Yeah.
Super easy. Well, let's take it to the kind of the outside, the kind of classic pieces. How do I deal with my T-band? And most of the time people are doing it on a roller, but if you already got this set up, you're set. And so you're traveling, or you don't have to feel kind of beholden to having all your props. So go ahead and lay on your side. This classic hip tightness, as hips get tight, this little bit of muscle here and some of the other is called the TFL, the tensor fascia lata, and it drives kind of some of the tension. But this IT band is a big, thick, ropey piece of connective tissue that also dives straight down to the femur. And so it makes a really thick band on the outside, kind of creates the compartments of the quads and the hamstrings, but it creates that septum. And so imagine it's like an IT. The IT stands for iliotibial band, but it's like a T I-beam of steel that goes all the way down. So a little stretch, a little mobilization, you can understand why that doesn't work necessarily. You have to spend some kind of dedicated time. So usually when we're talking about IT band tightness, we need to look upstream and downstream to fix this thing, but it definitely helps to affect the kind of injured tissue or the restricted tissue. So go ahead and stick this, or let's do it with the ball. Let's say you have your ball. Go ahead and stick that underneath that IT band. And what I want you to do is think about clearing and rolling sections. So we're going to start on the outside, and ultimately we're going to need to roll all the way to the middle of your thigh. So get some pressure on that leg on the outside. Anything tight there? Good. So go ahead and pull that leg back and forth. Bend that leg, flex your quad, and flex that knee back and forth. And again, what you've done is you're starting to pull that leg and that tissue past that tacked down point. So you'd stay there. And look, there's too much territory to cover in a single session. So my goal is to say to my athletes, spend 5 minutes doing this if you have an IT band problem. Don't think I'm going to cover both legs. You'll black out from pain long before that happens. And it's awkward to clean up vomit. So just spend some time getting a little bit of work in, and then you still haven't cleared this section. So you've done this 15 or 20 pumps. So now let's go ahead and roll a little bit further onto your quad and see if you can't sandwich. And now you're it's a little bit more oblique. This is the way we want people to hit the foam roller too, but this is a little bit more acute, directed, and it could be done with the same thing. So try that on both of those.
Oh, both?
Yeah, see if that doesn't just change.
Down there?
No, just the two balls taped together.
In the same spot? Or?
Yeah, just keep rolling over. Because ultimately we're going to want to make our way to the quads. So if we think about, let's think less about kind of individual muscles, and let's see if we can't start to kind of get into, movement, right? How's that feel?
It's hard.
Good. Let's go ahead and flip all the way over onto your stomach. And let's see if we can't roll back and forth. So theoretically now we're kind of on the quadriceps. We want to specifically think about the rectus femoris, and I'd want my athlete to kind of clear in sections. So she starts to the side, and ultimately she's rolling, and then once you find something tight, and that feels a little bit tight to me, yeah?
Yeah.
Go ahead and pump your leg back and forth. Oh, you can see it initiates that big hip hike. We know we're onto something there. And just spending a few minutes there is a really simple way to get some time in there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Great. So let me show you, another spot. So we get one for the hip, IT band. We've gotten into your quad a little bit. Showed you one sitting on the hamstring. Common area that gets tight, especially as people have kind of adopted more of this pose running style, is clearly we see calves and hamstrings, and this can be applied to any technique of mobilizing. Look, I can stick my foot on there. I got my calf on there. I can do little circles. If something's restricted, I need a little bit more resistance. I can prop up on something, yoga block, do little wheels. That's a simple way to get in there and kind of affect change. But the piece that I want to work on a little bit more is this muscle that kind of lays underneath the big calf. And that is the posterior tibialis. And the posterior tib runs underneath that guy, runs around the inside of your ankle and gives your foot some arch. And as we start to run and spend more time on the ball of our foot, this little muscle and tendon gets a little bit challenged. And if you go ahead and just cross your leg here for me, if you stick your elbow in that spot, kind of between your shin bone and the calf there, or even your thumbs, can you feel that that's tight in there? If you need some help, I'll guide that. Feel it?
I mean, it's tender, sure.
Yeah,
It's
tender. There you go. There's your tender spot. So look, I could do, I could prop my foot up. I can roll that ball around, save my thumbs, and I can just spend some time working in between those spots. Again, put that ball underneath there. Try to smash between the balls. Little circles, oscillating. There you go. How's that feel? Anything in there?
Oh, so good.
Oh, so good. Exactly right. And all of this becomes, you see it doesn't take much. There's no rules about treating your myofascial dysfunction or these shortened tissues. Find a place that's restricted. Hopefully it's not on a nerve. If something goes tingly, stop. See if you can reposition. Otherwise, treat yourself until it starts to resolve, or you feel the quality of the tissue. And then, thinking about 1 degree on the horizon represents a lot of change over time. So you're not going to reclaim having tight quads or tight hips or tight hamstrings in a single session. Don't try to get it all done in a single session. Think about scaling this up and developing a practice where 15 or 20 minutes a day you're working on some of your junk. Make sense?